the near future, a revolutionary virtual reality console called the Nerve Gear changes gaming forever. Alongside it comes Sword Art Online, the first-ever full-dive VR game. Thousands of players log in, including Kirito, an ugly, disgusting loser, a former beta tester. He enters the game's world, a massive floating castle called Aincrad, and quickly meets a friendly new player named Klein. Kirito shows Klein the ropes, teaching him combat basics like how to take down a boar. But the excitement turns to panic when they discover they cannot log out. Soon, the game's creator, Akihiko Kayaba, appears in a dramatic broadcast. He reveals the horrifying truth. This isn't just a game anymore. The logout option has been removed, and worse, if a player's health bar hits 0 or someone removes their nerve gear in the real world, they'll die for real. Kayaba declares that the only escape is to clear all 100 floors of Aincrad. His chilling words echo as the reality sinks in. This is life or death. 1 month passes and over 2,000 players have already died. Kirito attends a meeting led by Duel, a charismatic beta tester, who announces they've located the first floor boss, Ilfong the Kobold Lord. The players form teams to prepare for battle, and Kirito teams up with a quiet, mysterious girl named Asuna. The next day, the boss fight begins. Duel leads the charge, and at first, the players work together to wear Ilfong down. But when Ilfang's health drops dangerously low, Duel rushes in for the finishing blow, only to be struck down, fatally wounded. With his last breath, he begs Kirito to finish the fight and save everyone. Taking up the mantle, Kirito steps forward and defeats Ilfong. However, instead of celebrating, the other players turn on him. They accuse Kirito of using his beta tester knowledge to get an unfair advantage, calling him a beater, a mix of beta tester and cheater. Rather than argue, Kirito boldly accepts the title, embracing it to distance himself from the others and carry the burden alone. As the dust settles, Kirito claims his reward, a black leather coat that becomes his signature look. He then steps through the gate, officially becoming the first player to clear the first floor of Aincrad. The journey to survive has only just begun. Kirito joins a guild called the Moonlit Black Cats, but he hides the fact that his level is much higher than the other members. One of the members, Sachi, confesses to Kirito that she fears dying, and he comforts her. While the guild leader, Keita, leaves to buy a house for the group, Kirito and the others explore the 27th floor and open a treasure chest, which triggers a trap. An army of monsters appears, surrounding them. Kirito helplessly watches as all his guildmates, including Sachi, are killed. When Keita learns about their deaths and Kirito's hidden level, he takes his own life. Grieving, Kirito travels to the 35th floor and defeats a secret boss, Nicholas the Renegade, hoping to find an item that can revive a player. However, he discovers it only works within 10 seconds of their death, so he gives it to Klein instead. That night, Kirito receives a pre-recorded message from Sachi, where she tells him not to blame himself and to keep living. In another encounter, Silica, a beast tamer, leaves her party after an argument and gets ambushed in a forest by ape monsters. Her dragon familiar, Pina, sacrifices itself to protect her. Kirito arrives in time to save Silica and kill the monsters. He promises to help her revive Pina by taking her to the 47th floor to retrieve a special flower. Along the way, he warns her about orange players, who commit crimes, and red players, who murder. After defeating a plant monster and obtaining the flower, Rosalia, the leader of an orange guild called Titan's Hand, confronts them. Kirito reveals he used Silica as bait to lure Rosalia's group. With his ability to quickly regenerate health, Kirito easily defeats and arrests the guild. Silica later thanks Kirito and uses the flower to revive Pina. On the 56th floor, Asuna suggests a plan to lure a boss into a village, but Kirito disagrees because it might harm the NPC villagers. Later, on the 59th floor, Kirito convinces Asuna to take a break, and they spend a peaceful afternoon in a field. As thanks, Asuna invites Kirito to dinner at a restaurant. During their meal, they hear a scream and discover a player named Keynes has been hanged and impaled near a church. Kirito and Asuna investigate and learn that Yoko, Keynes' friend, and their former guild, Golden Apple, might be involved. 6 months earlier, the guild's leader, Griselda, was killed while selling a valuable ring. Agil, a merchant, reveals that the weapon used on Keynes was crafted by Grimlock, Griselda's husband. Suspicion rises that Grimlock may have killed her for the ring. Before they can confront Grimlock, Yoko appears to be killed by a knife thrown through a window, and the suspect teleports away. However, Kirito soon realizes that Yoko and Keynes faked their deaths using teleport crystals. Disguised at Griselda's grave, Yoko and Keynes interrogate Schmidt, a former guild member, but he pleads innocence. Suddenly, Laughing Coffin, a dangerous red guild, ambushes them, but Kirito arrives to drive them away. In the end, Grimlock confesses that he wanted Griselda dead because she was happier in the virtual world, and he feared she might leave him. As Grimlock is taken away, Kirito and Asuna see a vision of Griselda's spirit near her grave before she disappears. On the 48th floor, Kirito visits a blacksmith shop run by Lisbeth, a friend of Asuna's, to request a custom sword. Lisbeth is surprised when Kirito's sword, Elucidator, breaks her strongest creation. Determined to craft a better weapon, she suggests they travel to the 55th floor to find a rare mineral guarded by a crystal dragon. At the dragon's nest, they discover the mineral at the bottom of a pit. During their adventure, Lisbeth begins to develop feelings for Kirito. After Kirito defeats the dragon and helps her get back safely, Lisbeth uses the mineral to forge a new sword for him called Dark Repulsor. As Lisbeth gathers the courage to confess her feelings, Asuna suddenly arrives, interrupting the moment. Realizing the connection between Kirito and Asuna, Lisbeth becomes heartbroken. Later, Kirito finds her sitting alone and thanks her for helping him. Lisbeth smiles and tells him he's welcome to visit her shop anytime. On the 74th floor, Kirito catches a rare rabbit with high-quality meat and considers selling it to Agil, a merchant. However, when Asuna shows up, Kirito decides to let her cook the meat since she is a skilled cook. Asuna invites Kirito to her home on the 61st floor to prepare the meal, despite objections from her bodyguard Corridil, who dislikes Kirito because he is a beater. Asuna ignores Corridil's protests, and she and Kirito enjoy a stew made with the rabbit meat. Asuna persuades Kirito to team up with her, even though he prefers playing alone. The following day, they return to the 74th floor, where Corridil challenges Kirito to a duel, claiming he's better suited to protect Asuna. Kirito easily wins by shattering Corridil's sword. Furious, Corridil accuses Kirito of cheating, but Asuna, using her authority as second-in-command of the Knights of the Blood Oath, orders Corridil to leave and return to the guild. Afterward, Kirito and Asuna continue exploring the floor and eventually locate the boss room. Kirito and Asuna flee the boss room after encountering Gleam Eyes, a powerful chimera-like boss. Outside, they meet Klein and his guild, Furinkazan. Soon after, Kobats and his group, the Aincrad Liberation Force, arrive. Despite objections from Asuna and Klein, Kirito gives Kobats a map of the dungeon. When Kirito, Asuna, and Klein later enter the boss room, they discover Kobats dead and the Aincrad Liberation Force severely injured. Realizing the boss is too strong, Kirito is forced to reveal his secret skill, dual wielding, allowing him to use two swords at once. Kirito defeats Gleam Eyes but collapses due to severe health loss. Asuna catches him in an embrace, worried for his safety. News of Kirito's unique skill spreads quickly, reaching Heathcliff, the leader of the Knights of the Blood Oath. Heathcliff challenges Kirito to a duel. If Kirito wins, Asuna can leave the guild. If he loses, Kirito must join. On the 75th floor, Asuna warns Kirito of Heathcliff's immense strength and defense abilities. During their duel in an arena, Heathcliff parries Kirito's attacks and defeats him, forcing Kirito to join the guild. Later, on the 55th floor, Kirito shares with Asuna why he avoids guilds, recounting the tragic fate of the moonlit Black Cats. Soon after, guild member Godfrey summons Kirito and Corridil for a skill test. During a break, Kirito and Godfrey realize Corridil has poisoned their water, paralyzing them. Corridil reveals himself as a member of Laughing Coffin, a guild of player killers, and kills Godfrey. He begins torturing Kirito, nearly draining his health, but Asuna arrives just in time and uses an antidote crystal to save him. Corridil pretends to surrender, but when he attacks Asuna, Kirito steps in and kills him. Asuna blames herself for the danger Kirito faces and suggests they should stay apart, but Kirito reassures her. He kisses Asuna and promises they will always stay together. That night, Kirito asks to stay with her at her home, where they agree to marry in the game. After their virtual wedding, Kirito and Asuna take a break from the Knights of the Blood Oath to honeymoon in a peaceful log cabin on the 22nd floor. While exploring a nearby forest, they find a lost girl who suddenly collapses. To their surprise, the girl has no player cursor, which appears to be a glitch. Concerned, they bring her back to their cabin. The next day, the girl wakes up and remembers her name, Yui. She affectionately calls Kirito and Asuna her parents. Hoping to learn more about her, they travel to the first floor to see if anyone is searching for her. There, they encounter members of the Aincrad Liberation Force extorting taxes from a daycare owner named Sasha and the children in her care, Jin, Kane, and Mina. Asuna drives the extortionists away with her sword skills, scaring them into retreating. Suddenly, Yui begins to panic and glitch, moments before she loses consciousness once again. At the church daycare, Kirito, Asuna, Yui, and Sasha are visited by Yulier, the second in command of the Aincrad Liberation Force. Yulier reveals that Thinker, the guild's leader, was betrayed and trapped in a dangerous dungeon on the first floor by Kibu 3 days prior. Desperate to save him, Yulier asks for their help, and Kirito, Asuna, and Yui agree to assist. As they navigate the dungeon, they eventually find Thinker, but before they can escape, they are ambushed by a terrifying boss called Fatal Scythe. Despite their efforts, Kirito and Asuna are quickly overwhelmed, unable to match the boss's strength. Just as the situation grows hopeless, Yui steps forward and unleashes an immense burst of fire, destroying the Fatal Scythe effortlessly. Shocked, Kirito and Asuna learn that Yui is not an ordinary child, but an artificial intelligence originally created to support players. However, Yui explains that she was forced to only observe players' struggles rather than assist them. She tearfully admits that she came to see Kirito and Asuna as her parents. Her interference triggers a forced deletion, but Kirito quickly uses the system's console to save her data, transforming Yui into a crystal item that he gives to Asuna for safekeeping. Sometime later, Kirito meets Nishida, an older man who has spent his time mastering fishing in the game. Despite his fishing skills, Nishida laments that he cannot create tasty dishes with his catches. Kirito invites Nishida back to his home, where Asuna cooks the fish into a delicious meal. During dinner, Nishida shares a story about his repeated failures to catch a massive fish and asks for Kirito's help. The next day, Nishida hooks the elusive fish but struggles to reel it in. He hands the fishing rod to Kirito, and together, they pull in the enormous creature, only to realize it's a monstrous lake boss. Asuna steps in and defeats it with ease. Just as they celebrate, Kirito receives a message from Heathcliff, summoning them back to the Knights of the Blood Oath headquarters. Before they leave, Asuna opens up to Kirito, sharing how her feelings for him grew stronger over time. At the guild headquarters, Kirito and Asuna learn grim news. A group of 20 players was wiped out by the 75th floor boss. Determined to avenge them, a team of players from multiple guilds, including Klein, Agile, Kirito, and Asuna, gathers for the boss fight. They enter the arena and face the monstrous Skull Reaper, a fearsome creature capable of killing players with a single blow. After a long, grueling battle, they finally defeat the boss. However, Kirito notices something strange about Heathcliff. He confronts him and realizes that Heathcliff is, in fact, Akihiko Kayaba, the game's creator, who has been hiding as an indestructible avatar. Kayaba reveals himself as the final boss waiting on the 100th floor and paralyzes the other players, challenging Kirito to a one-on-one duel. He promises that if Kirito wins, the surviving players will be freed. Kirito accepts the challenge, and the two clash in a fierce battle. Just as Heathcliff prepares a fatal strike, Asuna breaks free from paralysis and throws herself between them, sacrificing her life to save Kirito. Devastated by her loss, Kirito presses on and, despite being mortally wounded, defies the game system to land the final blow, defeating Heathcliff and clearing the game. On a floating platform above Aincrad, Kayaba appears before Kirito and Asuna. He explains that his dream was to create a world where people could live out their truest imaginations. He congratulates them on their victory and bids them farewell as the virtual world begins to collapse. In their final moments, Kirito and Asuna embrace, sharing their real names and promising never to forget each other. Back in the real world, Kirito awakens in a hospital, weakened but alive. Determined to find Asuna, he rises and sets out to reunite with her. 2 months later, Kazuto Kirigaya, also known as Kazuto Narasaka, faces off against his adoptive sister, Suguha Kirigaya, in a spirited kendo match. Despite his skills, Kazuto is defeated, as his sword techniques, perfected in virtual reality, prove ineffective in the real world. Troubled, Kazuto visits Asuna Yuki in the hospital, where she remains in a coma alongside 300 other players still trapped after the Sword Art Online incident. At the hospital, Kazuto meets Asuna's father, Shozo Yuki, the CEO of Wrecked Progress Incorporated, and Nobuyuki Sugo, Shozo's associate. To Kazuto's dismay, Sugo reveals his intention to marry Asuna while she remains unconscious, fueling Kazuto's growing anger. Later at home, overwhelmed by frustration and grief, Kazuto breaks down in front of Suguha. She comforts him, but her thoughts turn to a revelation from their mother, Midori Kirigaya, who once explained that Kazuto is actually her cousin. Suguha wrestles with her own conflicted feelings toward him. The next day, Kazuto receives an email from Andrew Gilbert Mills, also known as Agile, featuring a screenshot from another virtual reality game. The image shows an avatar strikingly similar to Asuna. Seeking answers, Kazuto visits Agile, who explains that the screenshot comes from Alheim Online ALO, a game where players embody flying fairy avatars. Agile adds that the avatar resembling Asuna was spotted near the World Tree within the game. Learning that Wrecked Progress Incorporated developed ALO, Kazuto suspects Asuna may have been trapped in the game when she failed to fully log out of SAO. Determined to find her, Kazuto dives into ALO, adopting the identity of Kirito and selecting the shadowy Spriggan race for his avatar. Upon entering, he discovers that his game data from SAO, including his skill levels and inventory, has carried over. Among his items, he finds Yui's data and activates it, bringing her back in the form of a cheerful navigation pixie. Yui explains that ALO was built using a copy of SAO's servers, which accounts for Kirito's transferred stats. After Yui teaches him how to fly within the game, Kirito comes to the aid of a wind fairy sylph player named Lifa, helping her fend off a group of fire fairy salamanders led by their captain, Cagemune. This marks the beginning of his quest to uncover the truth and reunite with Asuna. Lifa expresses her gratitude to Kirito for saving her from the salamander attack and offers to teach him how to fly without relying on a controller. Together, they make their way to the city of Sylvian, where they meet Recon, one of Lifa's party members. At an inn, Kirito and Lifa discuss his goal of reaching the top of the World Tree. Impressed by his unwavering determination, Lifa agrees to help him and asks him to meet her at the inn the following day. When Lifa logs out into the real world, her true identity is revealed. She is Suguha Kirigaya, Kazuto's adoptive sister. Meanwhile, in the game, Asuna is shown trapped in a massive cage at the World Tree. She is being held captive by Oberon the Fairy King, the game's sinister game master, who is revealed to be Nobuyuki Sugo in real life. Asuna is horrified to learn that Oberon intends to use the game to control the minds of the 300 comatose SAO players. As Oberon leaves, Asuna clings to the hope that Kirito will come to her rescue. Back in the real world, Suguha reflects on her journey into virtual reality gaming and later meets with her classmate Shinichi Nagata, known as Recon in the game. She informs him of her decision to leave their party to assist Kirito. Determined, Suguha logs back into Alheim Online as Lifa and begins guiding Kirito toward the World Tree, the towering structure at the center of the game. Before their departure, Sigurd, a member of Lifa's old party, confronts her. Displeased with her decision to leave the group and irritated by her alliance with Kirito, Sigurd voices his frustrations. Unfazed, Lifa declares Kirito her new partner, silencing the objections. Meanwhile, Asuna overhears Oberon mention that Kirito is still alive. Filled with renewed hope, she stealthily observes as Oberon inputs the code to unlock her cage, committing it to memory before he departs. As Kirito and Lifa journey toward the World Tree, they pause at a landing point to take a break. There, they take turns logging out to rest and refresh, readying themselves for the challenges ahead.